Betrayal doesn't always make news in Hollywood. The industry didn't simply move on without Blake Lively. Instead, it erased her without ever mentioning her name. This is the silent betrayal that ended her career, and no one has spoken about it for years. It doesn't always come with scandals, screaming matches, or viral interviews. Sometimes it's quieter, colder, and more devastating. By the time anyone realizes it's happening, the doors are already closed. The calls have already stopped. The loyalty has already gone, and for Blake Lively, it ended with a silence so complete. Insiders, the directors, the veteran actresses, and the old guard producers noticed something different about Blake, who was shielded by image consultants, soft focus interviews, and a carefully curated brand of effortless elegance. They noticed small cracks hidden under perfect lighting, a defensiveness on set, a coldness at industry dinners, and an obsession with control that became louder the more praise she received. Respect turned into tolerance, admiration, and calculation, because in Hollywood, once people start calculating the cost of staying close to you, you're already losing. March 2025. A private dinner held in Los Angeles power players alone, without cameras or publicists. Meryl Streep Robbie, Margot Blunt, Emily Pugh, Florence witnesses reported that the energy was evident, and Cate Blanchett and Blake Lively were welcomed by default. Courteous smiles, little eye contact, not really warm. One source put it simply: as conversations shifted to new projects and names were thrown around, it seemed as though Blake was attending her own wake. Everyone was present, but nobody was actually with her. At the Academy dinner last night, I noticed that the energy around Blake was different, and that's how Hollywood does it. Emily Florence. But Blake's name was never mentioned, and somewhere sitting at that long table, Blake must have felt that. Hollow coldness, the realization that she wasn't part of the future being shaped around her. No explosions, no fights, just a room full of unblinking smiles, and after a few weeks the effects were evident. A major luxury brand campaign, Blake had been lined up for reassigned quietly to Florence Pugh, no announcement, no press statement, just a silent shift hearing. Florence Pugh just replaced Blake Lively for a major luxury brand deal. Quietly interesting timing. The signs piled up fast. An award season round she had been privately promised, suddenly rescheduled, then re-announced. Without her name attached, the worst part. No one reached out to explain. No one apologized because they didn't have to in Hollywood. Exclusion doesn't need justification. It's understood it was happening. And Blake, she kept smiling, because what else could she do? By the time Blake realized what was happening, the doors had already closed, and the people she thought she could trust, they weren't standing behind her anymore. They were standing on the other side, watching her fade without lifting a finger. Because in this town, loyalty isn't built on memories. It's built on momentum, and Blake's had already run out. And just a reminder, every deleted tweet, fake statement, and PR cover-up takes hours to piece together. If you want to help this channel, keep going. Hit that join button and become a member. We'll keep exposing what they won't in Hollywood. Not every fall is private. Some collapses happen in real time, under flashing cameras, under blinking cursors, under a million casual scrolls. Blake Lively had endured years of polite protection, and she was able to outsmile, outdress, and outpose others. However, by late March 2025, the whispers had changed to trending topics, side eyes at events, and articles that she dared not open, and the silence that had once shielded her was now contributing to her demise. Blake had RSVP'd months in advance to attend a major film festival fundraiser in New York on March 30th, 2025, as a VIP guest in the front row, but when she got there, something was amiss. Her name was missing from the official program, her seat was discreetly moved, and worse, when she walked the carpet, photographers were typically told to get extra frames of Blake hardly lifted their cameras. There were no yells or flashing surges, just courteous but uneasy clicks, as though everyone had received the same silent Memo that she was no longer in the awkward moment. Blake Lively walked the red carpet at tonight's event, but hardly nobody paid attention because something changed inside the venue, and cameras were more interested in Florence Pugh. Blunt, Emily, Margot, Robbie dragging each other into shoots. While laughing together, Blake hung around the periphery unclaimed, desiring a straightforward, ruthless transition without any scandal or blaring headlines. Days later, nominees for the approaching Spring Awards Gala, a renowned event that sets the tone for Cannes Toronto even early Oscar hype, were announced, and she was no longer significant. Blake's group had placed her as a paid consultant for several months. Private meals. Instead of receiving an exclusive publicity push, she was expected to receive a prestige nod and confirmation of her standing. Blunt, Emily, Robbie, Margot Blake was not even given an honorable mention or a place at the table when Florence Pugh nominated him, which was a huge surprise given today's nominations. Florence, Margot, Emily dominant. Behind the scenes, Blake Lively's entire absence is not an accident. The whispers became more acerbic. Her team played their hand too much. The industry moved on. No one wanted Blake's baggage. It wasn't just a missed award. It was confirmation that no one was keeping the doors open for her any longer. The final blow didn't come from a headline, but rather from a casting list. For months, Blake had been subtly advocating for the lead in private meetings with agents, subtle clues buried in variety profiles, and a major female-led limited series. Prestigious director global distribution deal had been quietly developing. Taylor, Anna Joy, one producer, told an insider frankly that Blake had created a brand, but brands don't last until early April, so her name wasn't even uttered. Because Hollywood doesn't cancel you with outrage, it cancels you with silence, and the worst part of that silence was just beginning. In Hollywood, silence isn't absence. It's a message louder than any scandal or headline could ever deliver by April 2025. Blake wasn't fighting to stay on top. She was fighting to stay visible, and the people who were once her safety net, respected legends, rising icons, were not reaching back. Blake Lively was losing more than just possibilities. She was also losing time, momentum, and people. What was worse was that it wasn't loud. Rather, it was the silent grins that missed the eyes, the calls that went unanswered, and the maybe next time texts that never arrived because in Hollywood, loyalty is tested when you start to fall, not when you rise. Blake Lively was falling quickly after her public snubs, the cold carpet, the nomination freeze, no supportive statements, no casual shout-outs in interviews, no quick PR articles reassuring the public, and silence speaks louder than any PR machine. I noticed that many industry people were posting throwbacks to Emily. Florence Margot, no one has posted this week. Even past co-stars Blake had relied on subtly moved away when questioned about future partnerships or dream projects, and Blake didn't even have a small Miss UIG anecdote that was telling. Florence Zenaya. Emily Taylor. Anna Joy Blake's name was not mentioned at all, and then there came Mariel. Mariel Street could have been selecting Florence for a big ensemble movie that she was producing and discreetly supporting Emily. Blunt for a prestigious limited series, but she didn't need to post, comment, or hint. Her silence spoke louder than any quote behind the scenes. Complimenting Margot Robbie's professionalism and grace in public at a BAFTA panel, never once looking back, never ever bringing up Blake Mariel, expressing his gratitude to Florence. The industry recognized that Mariel's quiet withdrawal wasn't personal. Rather, it was a professional move that subtly shifted attention from the erratic brand to the dependable talents in Hollywood. Emily and Margot didn't bring up Blake tonight. That wasn't an oversight. Rather, it was a decision. In private. According to insiders, Blake's staff rushed crisis PR plans and emergency meetings. Gentle approaches to streaming services in a nutshell, according to one insider, they were submitting Blake for every movie under the sun, including prestige dramas, action franchises, and romantic comedies. No matter where the issue is, everyone already knows the solution. You don't bring back a brand that the room has already abandoned. You can change your image after a scandal, get over a bad project, and even weather bad press. But when Hollywood decides you're no longer worth fighting for, you don't get a second chance. You don't get a second meeting. You just disappear by mid-April. It wasn't about whether Blake would recover. It was about how quietly she would disappear. And when the next betrayal came, the one she didn't even see coming, the doors were closed, the applause was for someone else, and the applause was for someone else. Now, the collapse isn't a single moment, but rather a sequence of minor humiliations, smiles that don't return, cameras that stop flashing, and rooms that once opened closing before you even arrive by mid-April 2025. Blake Lively was dealing with more than just industry silence. She was also dealing with public disinterest. It was supposed to be her comeback moment, an exclusive teaser screening of a secret project she had battled to attach herself to rumors of a rebirth. The campaign had been meticulously planned, months of behind-the-scenes negotiations, deals, and quietly structured articles prepared only when the official lineup dropped. The moment the world stops caring is the moment you realize it's already too late. Blake Lively's name was completely absent. Not a guest, presenter, honorary mention, or even an honorary mention. And worse, the project she had covertly committed to was still airing at Cannes without her. The industry knew the audiences noticed, and all of a sudden, the silence became confirmation that she wasn't just being